Good day, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Frank Snyder. I am so happy to be with you guys in the comfort of your home to share some things with you that I actually believe is going to be a tremendous blessing to you. Covering some things. Today, we're going to focus briefly on how to think and prosper. This particular topic is actually I birthed this particular topic from one of my favorite readers, and those who know anything about Think and Grow Rich, you probably understand where I'm coming from. But a great author that I find myself reading all the time is Napoleon Hill. All right, Napoleon Hill was born in 1883. And he died here in 1970. He had a long, successful career in counseling business owners, entrepreneurs, leaders, and he was a fantastic author. And one of his best-selling book is Think and Grow Rich. Okay, I have other mentors in which I read and I study. Studying the minds of great successful people in their living and in their life. And I brought it here actually in our ministry, my wife and I, our ministry here. And it's something that we have been teaching for a while. Another area that I have been focusing on here within this ministry and this church is the law of attraction, okay? The law of attraction talks about how an individual has the power to attract the very things that they desire and want. In other words, all of their dreams and their ideas, their ambitions and all of those things, how can they attract it in their life, okay? So, we begin to talk about that. I begin to study it actually before I begin to teach it. And I tapped into this by studying another great mentor of mine by the name of Bob Proctor. Some of you probably heard Bob Proctor in the series called The Secret, okay, which came out back in the mid 2000s, and The Secret was again not technically a secret, but a lot of individuals who was prospering back in the 1800s, like Henry Ford and all of these individuals in our lifetime who prospered, like Benjamin Franklin, Aristotle, Booker T. Washington, all of these great individuals who had challenges, who was up against issues, they were able to overcome it. They were able to override it. How did they do it? Even if we speed up the time and we begin to look at individuals like Gates and Warren Buffett and all of these individuals, Oprah Winfrey, Bishop T.D. Jakes, all of these individuals that prospered, okay, how did they do it? So I began to study Bob Proctor's message. Well, actually, he was involved in it. It's called The Secret, and he was teaching on the lines of the law of attraction. Then as I began to study the law of attraction, I began to actually study a law that was greater than the law of attraction, and that was the law of vibration, okay? And all of these things are universal laws that the Bible talks about. So I began to teach the people here at Increasing Faith Christian Center how to operate with these laws, and these laws are biblical. I began to show them in the Bible what Christ was talking about. Like one of the universal laws here is called the law of oneness, and Jesus talked about it all the time. The law of oneness is also the law of love, that everything that you're going to operate in, you're going to have to operate in the law of love. And every time we operate in the law of love, we're operating in the law of oneness, okay? You have to be one. Now, understand you have to be one with your dreams, you have to be one with your hopes, you have to be one with your desires. You have to be one with yourself. And when you find that harmony with yourself, there is nothing, and I mean nothing, that cannot be brought from the universe into your life, okay? So these are not, let's say, these are not laws that man themselves made up. These are laws that they found that God placed here even in the beginning of time. Another thing that I realize is that we have to understand the concept of God, and that God is not some religious freak, if you will. God is not some religious thing. No, that's something that man has made up. But God is all powerful, all knowing. He is the beginning of all creation, and that nothing that was created apart from God. Where people kind of get this thing mixed up and twisted when it comes to God is they look at God as being control of some dictator, a communist, if you will. And that's not it. In Genesis chapter 1 and starting at verse 26, and I believe it stops at verse 28, begins to tell you the relationship between God and man. It begins to tell you why God created man and why God created all of these things. In other words, when the Bible says, and God said, let us form man in our image and after our likeness, then we have to understand that's that time that God no longer dwelt in the heavens, but God dwelt here on earth with eyes and ears and hands and feet and mouth and nose. This is the time that God entered into reality, and reality saw God through man. So every time reality saw man, it saw God. And every time reality saw God, it saw man. And God and man was one. God and man was oneness. That's what they were. One throughout the course of love. And then God said, let man have dominion. In other words, the same dominion that I possess in the heaven, let man have that same dominion on earth. You understand? Dominion, power, rulership, dominance. And we have that even today. But what happened with the fall between God and man was man lost consciousness of the reality of God. All right, see that? I want you to understand that. Man lost consciousness of the reality of God, and man left the state of prosperity and moved into the realm of poverty, okay? They lost the realm of prosperity and moved into the realm of poverty, okay? And it was not that way in the beginning. In the beginning, it was prosperity because man had a conscience awareness of where God lived and who God was. So men understood at that time that them and God was one. Him and God was one. And God and man was one. That's where we want to get to today. So the first beginning concept of your prosperity is know the reality of God. Move from a theological mindset or perception of God and move to a spiritual consciousness of God and understand that God dwells inside of you. He dwells in your consciousness. He dwells in your inner being, okay? And you take God everywhere you go. God is everywhere you go. You don't have to scream out to the heavens. Get in tune with yourself. Spend time with yourself. Understand yourself. And the more you understand yourself is the more you understand God. That is actually the first step to prosperity. That's actually the first step to enjoying your life and growing your life in this season of 2018. Guys, this is actually the word that I started out teaching here in Increasing Faith. Like in the middle of 2017 when I really began to understand this thing. You know, I've been studying it years ago. Even in my struggle in life, I was studying this thing, but it was not until actually last year I really began to come out with it. My wife and I, we taught a law of attraction workshop out there in North Charleston, and it was phenomenal. And we teach this same thing every day. Okay, well, every Sunday, every time we get the opportunity to talk with the folks here at Increasing Faith Christian Center right here in Mount Sconer, South Carolina. If you didn't know that, 120A North Highway 52 service starts 8 o'clock a.m. on Sundays, and we're out by 9:30 a.m. Guys, it's a wonderful thing, and that's what we talk about all the time, how to bring your dreams and your passions and the very thing that you want to pass in your life. Currently here, we've been talking about how to increase, grow, and to pull finances to you. You know, you got to take the law of attraction, guys, and you got to attach it to something, okay? You just can't talk about the law of attraction because it's just a whole bag of knowledge, but knowledge that you can't use. So we begin to take the law of attraction and begin to tie it towards finances, because this is an area that I don't matter how much you love God, I don't matter how much you might dislike God, but this is an area that everyone can relate to, okay? All right? So I think that's important. Guys, before I go, okay, I want to share this part with you. I want to read you a poem from an unknown author. And it really made a lot of sense to me when I heard it. It says, I bargained with life for a penny, and life would pay no more. However, I begged at evening when I counted my scanty store. For life is just an employer. He gives you what you ask. But once you have set the wages, why, you must bear the task. I worked for a menial's hire, only to learn dismayed that any wage I had asked of life, life would have been willing to pay. Now, this is important. I love this particular poem because this particular poem really speaks about the connection of God, universe, and man. You know, we have been taught that we have to work hard for what we want. And I believe this thing. I came out of a household, I came out of a family where we work hard for what we want. You know, we just couldn't do 100. We had to do 110. And if 110 wasn't good enough, then we had to do 150. In other words, we always had to be better than the next person. I grew up with that mindset, and I was always in competition with the next man. I used to find myself teaching my children that same thing. You got to be better than the next person. You got to be better than that person. But really, I had to be better than myself. Okay? You are in competition with your own self. You're not in competition with your neighbor. You're not in competition with your brother, your sister, your family member. You're not in competition with the folks on the job. You're in competition with yourself. Okay? And you have to master self. Okay? Once you're able to master self and you're able to be in the control of self, okay, then you find out that, hey, you really can manage this thing that's called life. You really find out the game of life is something enjoyable. You know, I want to share some more things about my personal life. And one of the things that I found out is I began to examine my personal life. I used to examine everyone else's life. I used to look at everyone else's life just to see what they was doing and what they wasn't doing, okay? But then I began to realize I need to examine my own personal life. I need to look inside my own personal heart. I need to look inside my own personal mind. So I began to get to a place where I had to determine my limitations as well as the things that didn't limit me, okay? And I had to decide, or I had to learn how to balance that. I began to study the things that made me frustrated, the things that made me angry, the things that made me upset, the things that caused me to find insecurities in my life, and stop focusing on those things that caused me to be frustrated, angry, upset, all of the insecurities in my life, my depressiveness mindset, my self-pity mindset, and I began to find out, well, where is the part of my life that I can flow limitlessly, okay, where I'm less limited. So I needed to find the area that brought me peace in my life. And one of the things that brought me peace in my life, and this could be different from you, okay, was that I used to love to get, and I still do, I would get in my vehicle and I would just drive out in the country. I am a country guy, so I would just drive out in the country. But I used to love doing this at a certain time of the year, okay? And my time of the year used to be around fall, okay? I just love the brisk air. I love the falling of the leaves. You know, I love the changing of the color of the leaves and the brisk wind. And I would just down my vehicle window and I would just take long drives. Okay, why? Because I love peace and I love the open atmosphere, okay? So I began to do those particular things, man. I began to keep myself around areas that brought me peace. Now, yours might be different. Bringing you peace may be you like to go fishing, or you might like to go to a bookstore, or you might like to take vacations. Whatever it is, you need to surround yourself around the very things that bring you inner peace in your life, okay? Inner peace in your life, knowing who you are, finding that center base in your life. Guys, that's the first step to prosperity. That's the first step in changing the way you think, is starting to build your building your securities within yourself. Okay, that's God. Okay, once you begin to be confident of who you are, what you are, where you are, then you're finding God. God is in every man. Doesn't matter how much you go to church or you don't go to church. God is in every man. Now, I prefer you to come to church. Why? Because that's the area that we just sit down and we just engulfed in the principles of God. So listen, I'm out of time now, but I want to invite you Sunday, okay? This coming Sunday, okay? At 8 o'clock a.m. Get up. I know you can do it. I got this from Mr. Harris. He said, boss up. So listen, I want you to boss up on Sunday, man. And I want you to come on out here to Mount Scona. I know you might live far or you might live, but Mount Scona is booming. Mount Scona is growing up. Some of you guys haven't been to Mount Scona in a long time. You need to come out here, check out some of our new stores that we have. Listen, we are doing great things right here in the town of Mount Scona, and I'm glad to be living here for 17 years. My wife and I, we are enjoying it every bit. Listen, Charleston used to be the place to be, but now it's Mount Scona, guys. We are taking control. I'm sorry, North Charleston. I'm sorry, downtown Charleston, but we are growing and booming. So I want to invite you out to Increasing Faith Christian Center this Sunday, 8 a.m. We got a great minister that's going to be bringing the word, Pastor Keisha Hawes. She's going to do an excellent job, guys. She have a great word for you. I want you guys to come out here, 8 o'clock a.m., hear a great word. God bless you. Like he said, boss up. Peace.